Hi, kindergarten. It's Mrs. Cummins. Good morning, and I hope you are all doing well. I'm sure that you can see the memory work on the screen, and I'm really hoping that you can. But before we do our memory work, I think maybe we can do our welcome song. So let's do that together. Are you ready? Hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? How are you today? I'm fine, I hope you are too. I'm fine, I hope you are too. I'm fine, I hope you are too. I hope you are fine today. Turn to your neighbor and shake their hand. Turn to your neighbor and shake their hand. Turn to your neighbor and shake their hand. Shake their hand today. Good job, kindergarten. All right, we will move on to our memory work now. So on the screen, it shows you. So the memory work comes from Psalm 136, verse 1. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. Good, kindergarten. So today we're going to continue talking about Esther for our Bible story. So we talked about how Esther was chosen to be a new queen because Vashti was not listening to the king. So he had to choose a new queen, and she was a beautiful queen. So we're going to talk about a little bit of a challenging story. So that means it's a little bit, there's a problem in this story. So let's figure out and let's listen to what this problem is. Okay, so our hands should be in our laps and our eyes should be watching Mrs. Cummins. Okay, so do we remember who Mordecai is? Do you remember who Mordecai was? Yes, that was her cousin. And he was taking care of Queen Esther because her parents had died, right? So we're going to talk about Mordecai. So one day, Mordecai discovered a plot to kill Ahasuerus. He told Esther to warn the king, and the traitors were caught and punished. This was written down in the court records and then forgotten. The king's most powerful official, so somebody who worked close with the king, was Haman. He was very proud and he liked to have everybody bow down to him. The only person who didn't bow down to Haman was Mordecai. As a Jew, he believed he should only bow down to God. Naturally, this made Haman very angry, not just with Mordecai, but with all the Jews. This is how he planned to get even. He said to the king, "You know, the Israeli captives are getting to be a big problem. They have their own rules and their own laws, and they refuse to obey yours. We better find a way to get rid of them. If you declare that they must all be killed, I'll pay a lot of money into your treasury." The king, he agreed, and he gave Haman permission to write a law that would get rid of all the Jews. Haman made a terrible law that on a certain day in February, all the citizens should kill all the Jews that they could find, men, women, and children. And when they did this, they could have those Jews' possessions, which means all of their belongings, for their own. So Haman sent messengers out all over the country to announce this law. When Mordecai heard about it, he was brokenhearted. Like all the other Jews, he cried and he mourned about the bad news, and he wondered what he could possibly do to save his people. Well, Queen Esther, she didn't know about Haman's law, but she did hear that her uncle was outside the palace crying. He had taken off his good clothes and was wearing rough clothing made of burlap, like gunny sacks. Esther sent someone to find out what was wrong with him and to offer some fresh new clothes. He sent a message back telling her about all the trouble the Jews were in and asked her to get the king to help. She replied, "The king is likely to kill anyone who goes to see him without an invitation. unless he is feeling especially kind and holds out his scepter. And I'm going to show you a picture of his scepter. So if you see in his hand right here, that is his scepter. And this is Queen Esther. So this is the king, and she's holding out his scepter. He hasn't invited me to see him for several weeks, and it would be dangerous for me to go. Mordecai sent another message. Even though you are the queen, that won't keep you from being killed in February, along with the rest of our people. Why do you think she would be killed? If you said because she was a Jew too, you were right. Perhaps this is the very reason you got to be a queen, so you could help your fellow Jews in this emergency. Esther asked Mordecai to pray for her and to start praying meetings all over the city. Then I will go to see the king. And if he kills me, well, at least I tried to help my people. While all the Jews were praying for Esther, she worked out a plan to try to get her husband, the king, to help get the Jews out of danger. Esther went to the king, and not knowing if she would live or die, but he held out his scepter, and he said, "What can I do for you?" She replied, "I just want to invite you and Haman to a banquet tonight." The king accepted her invitation and sent for Haman. They had a fine dinner. Then the king asked again, "What do you want me to do for you?" Again she answered, "I just want you and Haman to come back tomorrow for another banquet." Haman was very proud to be invited to eat with the king and queen, and he bragged about it to his family and said, "I would be completely happy if it wasn't for that rude Mordecai." His wife said, "Build a high gallows and get the king's permission to hang Mordecai tomorrow. Then you can enjoy the banquet." Haman liked that idea, and he had the gallows built. That night before the king went to sleep, he found the record of the time Mordecai had saved his life. He realized he had never rewarded Mordecai for this good deed. And when Haman came to see him, planning to ask about killing Mordecai, the king spoke first. "Haman, what could I do to honor someone special?" Haman assumed the king was talking about him. "Oh, give him a fine robe and a crown. Let him ride your horse in a parade through the city, and have a prince shout, 'This is how the king honors someone who is worthy.'" "That's excellent. Do all these things for Mordecai." What? What a shock for Haman. Can you imagine how he felt when Mordecai received all the reward and honor that Haman wanted? The king and Haman went to Esther's second banquet. And that night, again, the king asked Esther, "What do you want?" This time Esther said, "Oh, king, if you care about me, please save my life and all the lives of all the other Jews who still live here in your kingdom, for we are going to be killed." "What do you mean?" the king cried. "Who would dare threaten your life?" "This wicked man, Haman, has ordered all the Jews to be killed, and I am one of them," she answered. The king was terribly angry and stomped out of the room to think about the problem. Haman shook with fear, and he threw himself across Esther's couch to beg for mercy. Just then the king came back and thought Haman was trying to hurt Esther, so he ordered for him to die. Haman was hanged. He had on the very gallows that he built to hang Mordecai. The king gave Haman's house to Esther, and Haman's job as prime minister to Mordecai. Esther asked the king to change the law about killing the Jews, but he could not. Then Esther had an idea. She said, "Oh, king, since you can't change the law, will you make another one permitting the Jews to fight back against their attackers?" Ahasuerus was happy to do that, and when the Jews were attacked in February, they fought back, and their lives were saved. So do you think Esther was very brave to go to the king? Yes, she was very brave because the king held something in his hand. He held a scepter, and if he put the scepter out, that means that she could talk to him. But if he kept it to himself, that means that she would die. So she was very brave because she didn't know if the king was going to hold the scepter out or not. Yes, and did Esther save all her people? She did. She did save all her people. So you have a special coloring page in your package that you can color. And if you were coloring it during the story, then that is fine. That is okay. But I want to see your best work. Okay? Bye, kindergarten.